The Scubapro MK2 is a flow-by piston design featuring only one moving part, making it simple to service. During this presentation, we will cover all aspects of a typical annual service, including disassembly procedures, general cleaning and inspection, reassembly, and final adjustments and testing. This tutorial is intended to assist you and further support the tips, techniques, and subject matter covered in the Scubapro workshop. Prior to servicing any first stage, we recommend checking the intermediate pressure and lockup characteristics, as this data tells a story and must be taken into consideration. The IP range for all Scubapro first stages is 125 to 145 psi. Once IP and lockup characteristics have been verified, we are now ready to begin disassembly. To properly service the Scubapro MK2, the following tools are necessary. Some variation of these tools is acceptable, providing they are equally suited. We begin with a 6-point socket. Note that the extension doubles as a DIN adapter as well. These two specialty tools are available through Scubapro. The Scubapro multifunction tool with comfort handle, high pressure seat removal tool, field handle to secure the first stage, and soft brass tool set. Always reference a current schematic and tech notes taken during your specialized Scubapro workshop. We begin with removing all port plugs. Engage the field handle into the high pressure port for maximum holding strength. Secure the 6-point socket onto the retainer, remove the yoke screw, and attach the extension. Lay flat on the bench, or better yet, a vise. Rotate the first stage and allow the handle to rest on top of the bench. Engage the hook spanner into the best-oriented ambient pressure port at a 45-degree angle. Now that both components are loosened, remove tools. I find it easier to embrace the yoke retainer and spin the body off. Let's begin by removing the spacer washer. Note the direction: feet towards the main body, rings towards the yoke. The retainer will now fall free. Now remove the static retainer O-ring by pinching to relieve some tension, which allows the pick to slide underneath more easily. Rotate the retainer to inspect the tank O-ring sealing surface for imperfections. This would be a go, whereas this example is a no-go and merits replacement. Now remove the filter retainer by lifting on the locking tabs. The filter will now either drop away or, in some cases, due to salt buildup, the filter may need to be pushed out using a dull or rounded tool made of brass, plastic, or wood. Following the pathway of the gas that we breathe reveals two feeds. The center feed is our main supply of gas, while the smaller secondary through hole is our HP feed for gauges or computers, transmitters, and the like. Always check for communication from one chamber to the other. A small light is handy. In the unlikely event of blockage, there is a simple solution. Simply add a few drops of water to the high pressure port. Now take a simple standard Allen key and screw the port plug and chase the water clockwise quickly. Hydraulics will in most cases clear the obstruction. We begin with removing all port plugs. Pinch O-rings to relieve tension and remove as shown here. Begin unscrewing the piston cap. Just before the threads disengage, stop and place on the bench. Once completely loose, exaggerate, lifting the cap straight up like so. Grasp and remove the piston subassembly from the main body. Spring alignment sleeve and piston all together by wiggling it out. This spring can be separated from the piston. At this point, we are going to remove the centering sleeve from the spring using a suitable device. Check the integrity of the TIS polyurethane clear coating. The spring surface will have a rubberized feel to it. Look for peeling or for any signs of metal pitting or corrosion. Replace as necessary. Remove washers, if any, from the piston head. Pinch O-rings to relieve tension and remove as shown here. The high-pressure seat can easily and safely be removed by utilizing this high-pressure seat removal tool. Simply rest the piston onto the tool, push down, and receive the seat. Again, no matter how experienced of a technician you are, it's always good practice to have and use current schematics. We are now ready for the general cleaning section. The first stage is completely disassembled and ready to be cleaned by placing separate components in the ultrasonic cleaner using a suitable solution. We're now ready to dry off the parts, further clean, and general inspection. Dry off components with air, clean shop rags, towels or paper towels and cotton swabs. Just be sure they are clean and dry each time. Detail the main body knife edge using a common pencil eraser. Utilize light to your advantage to detect any imperfections in the knife edge. Here you will note that we have an even bright reflection. A dull point or section would require further inspection and would most likely merit replacement. Apply a speck of lubricant to your fingertip and inspect the overall integrity of the compression chamber wall finish. At Scubapro, an individual service kit is made for each one of our first and second stage regulators. We insist on using genuine Scubapro parts. Upon closer inspection, you will note that all Scubapro O-rings have trace element in different various colors, which validates this point even further. We are now ready to commence reassembly. As our hands are free of lubricant, we'll begin by installing the new filter now, followed by the filter retainer, convex towards the filter. Press secure with suitable device to the point that no rattle is present. This ensures that the gas indeed travels through the filter instead of around it. Let's install the new high-pressure seat next. Push the piston onto the seat. While either side is suitable, the seat is intended for one use only. As the piston O-rings are dynamic, it is appropriate to add a generous bead of quality lubricant to the two O-ring lands. Work lubricant into the pores of the O-rings while running an inspection. Feel for any imperfections which can be detected by your fingers. Return the two shims to the piston head now. As we verified that our IP was low from our initial IP check, we'll go ahead and add a third shim now. Return the spring to the piston, followed by the centering sleeve. Gently rest the piston assembly into the piston cap. Push gently with two thumbs to apply uniform pressure, guiding the piston into place to avoid O-ring pinch. Place a small amount of lubricant on the main body threads and screw on the piston cap. Let's now move over to the yoke and yoke retainer and assemble. Place retainer into the yoke, return the spacer washer, note feet facing out, and finally the static O-ring. Hold the retainer assembly at a 45-degree angle and attach the main body. Install the O-rings onto the port plugs as needed. Snug the piston cap by reintroducing the field handle and tightening with hook spanner multi-tool. Let's move over to the vise. With field handle attached into the HP port, brace and vise. Engage the 6.1-inch socket corresponding extension, calibrate, and attach the torque wrench, tighten to factory specifications as noted on current schematic. Return the dust cap. Return the yoke screw to yoke or A-clamp. Install protective soft cap and engage locating tab into one ambient pressure port. We are now ready for the testing phase of the Mark II. Simply mount the first stage to the adjustable HP supply. Connect the system to an IP gauge. We are now ready to charge the system with high-pressure air. Again, I remind you that it is important that we test the Mark II at 3000 psi to check and observe intermediate pressure, and then we're going to recheck it again at 500 psi. Remember to cycle the regulator several times. Make your adjustments as necessary. If you will recall, prior to disassembly, we checked the IP and noted that it was slightly low. We have now shimmed the regulator during assembly, anticipating that, and the IP is now setting at approximately 145, which is ideal. To maintain good performance at low tank pressure, the IP should be adjusted to 145 at 3000 psi. Let's simulate a common dive scenario, going from 3000 supply down to 500, and note that we are still within the range of 125 to 145. Intermediate pressure lockup and drift characteristics are an important phase of testing. At this point, our gauge is setting at 145, and when we cycle the unit, the gauge quickly returns to 145, very crisp and without drift. If drift was present, we would allow up to 5 psi drift. That is a slow drift, stop, and lockup. This would be acceptable. One more use of an intermediate pressure gauge as accurate as this one is to check for IP droop or a leak. A typical scenario is to observe the needle fall a few psi and recycle or recharge itself. This scenario is indicative of an IP leak somewhere in the system. If it is not audible, however is detectable via the gauge, simply submerge the regulator system with hoses underwater to detect the leak via bubbles. The objective of this presentation has been to give you a real-world practical approach covering all aspects of a typical annual service, including disassembly procedures, cleaning inspection, reassembly, and final adjustments and testing. This tutorial is intended to assist you and further support the tips, techniques, and subject matter covered in the Scubapro workshop. Now that this regulator is finely tuned, call your customer and let them know they are ready to return to our amazing underwater world.